Hi everyone, my name is Rebecca. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be having just a little chit chat about how I track my reading and how I rate my books. So we're going to start with tracking reading. So in previous years I've only ever tracked it on Goodreads, which I think is fine. That's perfectly okay. But Goodreads can be a bit glitchy at times and there's not a lot of things you can keep track of. So this year was the first year that I decided to make a spreadsheet just to keep track of some things. It's not extremely detailed and I know that there's a lot of more things that I want to keep track of in the future, but for now it's just pretty basic. I keep track of the author, also the name of the book, obviously that should probably be number one, the name of the book, the author, how many pages, the rating I gave it. I do give 0.5 stars, so my average rating on my spreadsheet is slightly different to my Goodreads average, but usually it's not too different. Keeps track of the dates that I read it, the genre, the age range, and whether it's a reread for me. As you can see from those, there's not a lot of categories. I know some people have way more than that, but for me, I just wanted, because it was my first year using it, I just wanted to make something really simple. Some things that I definitely want to include in the future is things like where I got the book from, so whether it was a gift or whether I got it from the library, whether I bought it myself, or whether it's on SCRIBD. Also, I want to keep track of the format, so whether it's an audiobook, an ebook, or a physical book. This was not a thing that I thought I would need to track because I only ever read physical books before March this year, so that was a development that I started listening to audiobooks and stuff. I also want to keep track of things like how diversely I'm reading. I don't do that right now and I know that it's something that I need to improve on. I know that if I looked back on my Goodreads account from, let's say, 3 years ago, I know I wasn't reading that many books, but probably I would be embarrassed. There was probably maybe one black author, or maybe not even any. I'm not even sure, to be honest. But it's definitely something that I need to work on, and a good way to do that would to actually be keeping track of how many books I'm reading by people of color. For now, it's doing the job and I'm excited to, update it at the end of the year. And definitely if you have any things that you're like, oh, this is a really good stat to keep track of, definitely tell me. I keep track of my books another way, obviously on Goodreads, but I'm not mentioning that. I have a small journal. It is not a bullet journal because bullet journals, I saw that they were quite expensive and I was like, why spend money on something that I wasn't even sure I was actually going to keep up? So I just bought myself a cheap notebook and I was like, if you keep consistently writing, keeping track of reading and whatever in this, then I'll actually get a proper one next year. Though I'm not extremely artistic, so I'm not sure how well that would go, but I'll just give you a quick overview. So in the front I have all of the books that I've read so far this year, including and I also have included up here my Goodreads goal, which is 65. When I'm filming this, I have 60 books read, which is way more than I've ever done before. Last year I read 59 books in the whole year and it's only July and I've read 60. That's just because I haven't been going anywhere, so I've been doing a lot of reading. But onto the next page, I just have some anticipated releases. I'm super bad for keeping up with new releases and stuff, but that is also something that I really want to get better at, and also something that I want to start tracking in the future, whether books are backlist or new releases. I just remembered that I forgot to mention that earlier. I've read a good few of them and honestly a lot of them have been pretty disappointing. Every month I just keep track of what movies and TV shows I watch, and then I track how many pages I read per day. It's obviously not extremely accurate. I kind of just eyeball it. It's not something I show to anyone else. It's just for me to see how much I'm doing per day, roughly. I make myself a tiny TBR. It's nothing too stressful. I'm not a person who has to stick to their TBR. It's kind of just books for readathons that I do actually have to get to / read-alongs. Then it's like a new release that I'm really looking forward to, and maybe just a book that's sitting on my shelf that I'm really excited to read. And so I usually only choose around 6-ish maybe. It's nice to kind of tick off, be like, yeah, I did that. Is that just a weird me thing? Maybe. I also do a July wrap up. Obviously I have my spreadsheet, so there's no point in making that extremely detailed. So I just do the title, the rating, the number of pages, and the dates that I read it. So that is how I track my reading. So definitely tell me how you track yours, and also what other stats should I definitely look at for the future. And then we're going to move on and talk about how I rate books, which is messily is the answer. So obviously I do the 1 to 5 star, and I do use 0.5 stars, as I've said earlier in the video. I think I feel like I change my rating all the time. So how I rate my books is pretty inconsistent. If I looked back on what I read last year, I would probably change a load of those ratings. And that was a goal of mine going into this reading year, to be a little more strict with them, which I already think I'm failing at, but I'm just slowly working my way towards being like firm in my ratings, let's say. I don't think I gave any 1 stars last year, but I think most of my 2-star books that I gave last year probably should have been 1 stars, and then a lot, like around half of my 3-star books, because there were so many 3-star books, like at least half of them probably should have been in the 2-star range. But yeah, I kind of feel mean giving less than 3 stars, which is so silly. So this year I went in and I was like, I'm going to be more strict, which I don't think I've been that much more strict, to be 100% honest. And if I look back on like ratings from earlier in the year, I think I already like disagree with most of them. How do I rate them? Not at all. I don't DNF books. Is a whole other conversation. And I think it's perfectly fine if you DNF for your books. I'm just such a completionist. But a 1 star for me is a book that I absolutely hated. Like, I just didn't like the characters, didn't care about the plot, like it was like super predictable, and I'm literally just thinking of stalking Jack the Ripper right now, because that was I think, is that my only 1 star? And then a 2 star is a book that I just didn't like. So I didn't hate it, and maybe there was like something that was like okay about it, but I just personally didn't like it. And then a 3 star is just like middle of the road. Okay, it wasn't anything mind-blowing. It's not going to stick with me, but it's also not something that I'm going to be like, oh my god, that was so stupid. A 4 star is a book that I really like. And then a 5 star, which I'm trying to be way more selective with my 5 stars, and I still think I'm giving too many 5 stars out. I'm trying to, like, from now on, only give them to absolute favorites. Books that I know that I will reread again and again, and that have that feeling when you finish that it's like either you can't get it out of your head, you want to like immediately reread the book, and just like that feeling, inside you're like, oh my god, it's so good. Which like some of my like favorite books, it's not like, oh my god, that was so great, because like I'm thinking about like Sadie, that is quite a heavy book, but it was something that when I finished it, I immediately wanted to like pick it up again, and it really stuck with me. They are like a new favorite of all time, so I am trying to be way more selective. I think looking back on the 5 stars that I read this year, like honestly I can't even remember half of what happened in The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I also feel like it's been over 6 months since I read it, so I can't bring it down without like rereading it again. Then like obviously I gave it a 5 stars for a reason. Then that's a big problem with me, is after the fact I want to change the ratings. If it's like within kind of like a month or 2, then I will, but if it's been like half a year, I don't think it's really fair to bring down the rating. So obviously I've spoken about how I want to be more strict with 5-star reads. Like looking at my shelf, there's only a handful of books that I can remember having that feeling of this is incredible. Like Blood Witch, I immediately want to reread the whole series. I didn't even like love the first 2, those were 4 stars for me, I liked them. But when I read Blood Witch, I was like, I need to reread this immediately. And I just absolutely adored it, and I still think about the book. Same with things like The Infernal Devices, This Savage Song. And so those are the ones that I want to be giving 5 stars to, because they are ones that I know I will reread time and time again and never get bored of. I feel like I'm pretty good at rating 4 stars, but then the other problem is my 3 stars. I still, as I mentioned earlier, so many of my 3 stars last year probably should have been 2 stars. I think I'm still doing it again this year. And that is because so many of my 3 stars are books I'm like, this is okay. But some of those books that I'm classifying as okay, I was bored the whole way throughout, but I didn't see anything really wrong with it. Like, the characters were just okay. The plot was okay. The writing was okay. But I was bored. And my 5 stars are completely just my opinion and how I feel. So I don't know why, when it's I feel bored but you might enjoy it, is a 2 star. Obviously people are now being like, a 3 star is not a bad rating, which is 100% true. A 3 star is, it's solid, and a lot of people will like this, but personally for me, it's just okay. But I don't think a 2 star is a terrible book either. A 1 star, I think, that is just a really bad book. But a 2 star, I think I want to start trying to be like, it was just not for me. I personally didn't enjoy it, but I know that others will. And it was all just, it bored me. I couldn't get into it, which right now I would put books like that in 3 stars. But my whole rating system is based on how I feel. To be selective for my 2 stars, just because I don't want to be mean, is flawed thinking, I guess. So that's all that I really have to say on that topic. I actually ended up filming way more than I thought I would. I didn't think I had much to say on it, but I guess I did. So I do hope you enjoyed this awkward attempt at a video. If you did, maybe subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!